ugly retro pixel graphics are tired and overdone by lazy, talentless indie devs who can't afford to hire an artist. Insultingly, the developer insists that you should play this with a console peasant's children's toy gamepad instead of keyboard and mouse. If the business plan for a game is to compete with Spotify, which is free and has effectively unlimited music, all of which is better than the music here, it's failed before it even started. They literally couldn't pay people to spend time playing this.
Have you ever written a review? Odds are, yes, because even if it wasn't a formal review, you've at least said something like, dude, this insert any form of media is genuinely the most hype thing I've seen in a minute. Like the fight scenes, the story, bro, it's all straight up peak. You gotta hop on this, dude. Or you might have said the opposite of that, and I feel like for normal people, that's enough. You will not feel the need to go further, lest you risk gaining a red flag of being obsessive over niche weird topics. But what if you do go further, and not for the normal reasons like YouTube fame or for a job in journalism? You review for the love of the game, and for your own PC elitism moral code. Obey the Fist is a prolific Steam user who has reviewed more than 15% of the Steam catalog, currently having around 21,000 reviews, the majority of which being negative and reviewed in bad faith. I found him through a viewer of mine named Stevie John who had his game he helped work on called Haunting Hijinks reviewed by Obey, which is where I read his work for the first time. And let's just say, Obey the Fist writes a mean call to action, because after I read how weirdly worded and dense some of these reviews are, you are now watching this video. And I'm not the only one who has felt inclined to post about him, because with 21,000 reviews, Obey has been around, and is well known by the many indie devs whose games he has reviewed. Looking up his name on Google, he has been mentioned in threads, with most posters and commenters being indie devs stating how unfair he is with his reviews, with the general consensus being that they are slop. Even a YouTube hobby game dev named Zaxter99 already made a video on him with similar sentiments. But one thing in Zaxter's video that sticks out when viewing it from the future is Obey's review count, because back then he only had 7,000 reviews, which means he has more than tripled his reviews since then, having to on average write 9 full-length reviews a day ever since Zaxter's video 4 years ago. Which for one is really embarrassing. He definitely could have hit at least 15 a day with the correct grind set, and 2, not humanly possible. But before we get into figuring out his extreme writing speed, biases, and quirks he has in every review, let's learn about Obey the Fist from a primary source, his Steam profile, and his manifesto. A manifesto? Firstly, you might see his favorite group called Sentinels of the Store. It's just a consumer rights activist group for gamers, which makes sense for someone who's reviewed so many games. Next, you might be drawn to his awards, which look pretty positive until you get to his Clown Awards, which he has more of than any other award combined, which is immediately a red flag, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, because for now, maybe Obey is just really funny. So, next on his profile that stands out is his games owned to reviews ratio. He currently has 10,350 games, but has more than double his reviews, sitting at 21,128, implying he doesn't only review games he purchased, but games he claims for free on the Steam store as well, which is another red flag, but let's keep giving him the benefit of the doubt, cause maybe he donates all the money he saves by playing free games to charity. Scrolling down, we see the start of his manifesto, but before we can even start reading, he hits us with his ult by having Reddit as his favorite Steam group. And hey, I use and peruse Reddit as well, but not many will go as far as to wear that as a badge of pride. And honestly, wearing any social media platform as a badge of pride is probably a red flag, but I guess we can still give homie the benefit of the doubt, because maybe they're one of the chosen few who serves their country by moderating a Reddit page. But okay, now we hit the manifesto, which is titled Why So Many Negative Reviews. It's 15 paragraphs, so I will be pointing out issues I have with it at certain points as we read it, but don't worry, I'll make sure to skim over some portions to save time, while also omitting important context to make sure I misrepresent his arguments as much as humanly possible.
First of all, if you don't agree with my review for a game, buy it. Put your money where your mouth is. Prove to yourself I'm wrong by buying and playing the game I suggested you shouldn't. Whether you liked it or not, my review informed your buying decision. Mission accomplished.
Starting off extremely strong with Obey saying that no matter how you perceive his reviews, they influence your decision to play or purchase the game. And I think most people can agree this is false, considering how most things game journalists say nowadays is not taken seriously even when people read it. So the only way Obey can believe this statement to be true is if he's just a really firm believer in the butterfly effect. In the
Next paragraph.
he says a lot of games get published, so he makes the insightful claim that some will not be good.
Next paragraph.
Let's ask, are games made for gamers, or are they made to make developers feel good about themselves? Who's most important here, us or them?
For this statement, it's more of both, because some games were purely made for the dev and their friends. A perfect example of this was Balatro, which was being made as a portfolio piece and to send to his friends. And hey, to be fair, this isn't a chicken or the egg situation. Devs are more important, because if devs didn't exist, gamers wouldn't exist. So
Next paragraph.
he repeats what he said in the second paragraph about a lot of games being bad on Steam, but he decides to add a quote from some unknown author that wrote Star Trek for some reason.
Next paragraph.
Most people don't review bad games. They just ignore them and pretend they're not there. I'm doing something different. I'm honestly reviewing as many games as I possibly can. I never, ever bought a game with the intent of writing a negative review for it. Every game gets a chance to prove itself. Every game is held up to the same rigorous quality standards to see if it's one of the best the PC can offer to gamers.
First sentence is true, but everything after that's a lie, especially so with some of his beliefs that you'll see pretty instantly in the next paragraph. And I guess it wouldn't be a lie because he does believe what he's saying, but still, I mean,
Next paragraph.
Reviews are opinion. Everyone has an opinion, but some opinions are more qualified and more objectively developed than others. Through experience supported by fact and reason, perhaps your opinion about a 2D iPhone ported retro pixel platformer that only runs in 480p resolution being sold to the 4K PC gaming elite will be different from mine, but people are entitled to their views, especially if those views are qualified with fact. It's my opinion that you, the PC gaming elite, deserve only the very best.
And there we go. Other than him talking about some PC gaming elite that I don't think anyone has said unironically since 2013, he shows biases against 2D pixel platformers, which you might have caught from his old Steam bio he has in Zaxter's video. But this bias isn't just for 2D pixel platformers. Pretty much any game that doesn't look like a AAA ultra settings PC game gets ragged on in his reviews, for any mix of reasons like low effort, bad console port, or ugly, disgusting, uninspired retro pixel graphics. And connecting this to what I said for the previous paragraph, it's pretty clear to see how having a disdain for the retro game aesthetic in this current day indie landscape really doesn't bode well for him saying he will give all these games he inherently will dislike from the get-go an equal chance.
Next paragraph.
A trend has emerged in recent years to give trophies to every child who attends a competitive event, even if they don't come close to winning. Participation trophies don't show a great accomplishment has been made. In some ways, they diminish the victory of the exceptional winners. Most reviews on Steam are participation trophies. The game runs thumbs up. We also see a trend towards positive reviews because most reviews are written by gamers who saw the game, liked it, and bought it. It does not seem right that just because someone paid the $100 required to publish a game on Steam, that it should have an overwhelmingly positive review. I don't hand out participation trophies.
I really don't think comparing participation trophies to games really works. Like, believe me, I understand not liking participation trophies in some regards, but I think most can agree giving out a Little League trophy to kids in preschool and kindergarten isn't a big deal, and giving a positive, constructive review to a new indie dev who put their game up on Steam for free, I think is kinda in the same boat, especially considering a lot of games like that don't waste a lot of your time to try them out in the first place.
Next paragraph.
Negative reviews aren't all bad. Positive reviews have less value. Why? Positive reviews are inherently biased. Read a negative review for a game, understand what problems there are. If you can put those aside, then surely the game is exactly the kind of game you would want to play. Negative reviews can help gamers decide to buy a game because they will know what problems to expect, and can make an informed choice to accept them and buy the game with full knowledge. Negative reviews are the most honest and trustworthy.
This take coming from a guy who is insanely biased against a certain style of game is funny, and also it's just wrong to say negative reviews are more trustworthy. Every single review ever made is biased, and I don't think disliking a game makes you more likely to give correct takes on what the game has to offer, comparatively to someone who has liked the game, especially considering he barely plays some of the games he reviews, if he plays them at all, but we can talk about that in a moment.
Next paragraph.
No developer really wants to make a bad game. If every developer could make a game as popular and as technically and artistically great as games like GTA 5, Deus Ex, Skyrim, World of Warcraft, or Mass Effect, then that's what they would be doing. But they don't. This could be because they couldn't afford to hire anyone capable of programming modern PC graphics, or they lack the talent, ability, skill, or expertise to do this very crucial part of game development. To cover for this inadequacy, they resort to using game construction kits and asset store templates, which are meant to educate and make small demos to pass around with friends. They're not meant to replace hard work of real software developers and game designers. Products that have been slapped together by filling out game construction installation kits or copying asset store packages are never going to be a level of professional quality that I could recommend to other gamers.
Saying that all devs would make their games look artistically equivalent to GTA 5, Skyrim, or World of Warcraft is a take for sure. A few things here. I doubt the devs of a lot of praised stylized games like Valheim, Cruelty Squad, or Hollow Knight would ever sacrifice their stylistic choices by changing their art to anything close to those games. Why would he even put Skyrim and WoW next to GTA 5 is beyond me, especially WoW, because yeah, they have been updating the engine of the game constantly. It's still years behind graphics an elite PC gamer like Obey should want. And also, one of these games I saw Obey for some reason review seriously was Five Nights at Floppa, which is clearly made to be memey and bad. So I'm pretty sure this disproves his point about all games not wanting to be bad, because this game was made bad on purpose to enhance the experience. Dude, if you look at the review, it's like he's taking it way too seriously, bro. Like, this is just Floppa, man. Come on.
So we see developers many times lowering their standards and delivering deficient products simply because they're incapable of doing any better. Of course, we are all sympathetic for these people who have had a dream of being competent game developers, but failed in that attempt. But I write my reviews about the products, not the people that make them. I can't recommend anyone should buy a product that is deeply flawed simply because the developer isn't capable of doing any better.
The subtext of this paragraph feels really high and mighty, like he doesn't even give them any credit other than sympathy of their desire to make games, essentially calling all devs whose game he gives a negative review incompetent. Also completely lies that his reviews are not about the developers. We will see in a moment that he directly mentions the devs in majority of the games he reviews.
Steam reviews are not just for any gamers, they're for PC gamers. The PC is objectively the best platform for video games, but many games come to Steam without being PC games. They're made for consoles or Flash or the web or mobile phones. These games, not made for PC, are not likely to be of the same excellent quality as games made directly for PC, but developers who push these substandard games will push them to Steam in the hopes of scraping a few more bucks out of a bad product. I will not recommend a mobile or console-ported game to PC gamers unless it's incredibly exceptional. PC gamers will spend several thousand on a gaming rig. These gaming PCs are incredible machines capable of presenting amazing 3D visuals at extremely high resolutions, but often products are deficient, perhaps because they lacked the talent or budget to work with 3D graphics. Perhaps they didn't bother making the game compliant with 4K gaming rigs that have been around for years now. Perhaps they used lazy, minimalist, or pixel art because they couldn't afford to hire a video graphics engineer/designer. It's hard to recommend such a game because it won't provide the best experience for PC gamers.
These two paragraphs are insane, but they explain a lot of what Obey is about. If the game isn't a de facto PC game with all the Unreal Engine 5, DLSS 5, breathtaking imagery, it's most likely ugly, pixel art, low poly shovelware meant for mere console peasants to enjoy.
Next paragraph.
Finally, if you do feel angry because I didn't give a participation trophy to a bad product, remember that giving a positive review to a bad product is harmful to gamers and can be misleading. Joke games, edgy, so bad it's good games, and asset flips with joke reviews get positive ratings despite being awful and unplayable. I won't do that.
And that was his manifesto. I hope picking it apart as we went made it more bearable to sit through, because I don't even think I got through the whole thing in one go the first time I saw it. But here we are. Without even reading one of his reviews yet, he probably has tarnished his reputation in your eyes at least slightly. But maybe, you were thinking what I tried to convince myself of when I first read his manifesto. This guy has to be trolling, right? There's no way a genuine human being wrote that manifesto and proceeded to write 9 full-length reviews adhering to it daily for 4 years straight, which is what I was thinking. I thought maybe Obey writes his reviews with ChatGPT or something, so I ran multiple through an AI detector, and none out of the multiple I've checked have been flagged as AI, but also AI detectors can be easily fooled, so there is a chance he is doing that. But let's zoom out. Whether he is using AI or not, posting 9 Steam reviews a day is still an insane time sink. And along with how he AFKs his games he reviews with playtime, it's also a computer resource sink. Especially so if you are simply trolling, just trying to get a rise. Obey has kept this pace for 4 years, but started reviewing games in general 12 years ago in 2014, those of which he still edits to this day, by the way. So unfortunately, I don't think this is just a massive troll. And yeah, he actually does fake his hours, by the way. There was a day whenever I was making this video where I checked on his reviews, and he posted 9 that day, and each of those games had 4 hours, and unless he has like an extra 36 hours in the day, there's no way he was playing each of these games for 4 hours as he reviewed them. Not to mention there's this one game he played called Secrets of Soil that I played on my own, which was only 30 minutes, which means he didn't even look at the reviews to fake an actual accurate time. But with him clearly not trolling, I decided to give him one last chance where he can gain my benefit of the doubt. I thought maybe he just has a super specific taste and he does his reviews in good faith still. Maybe he will give credit where credit is due and not focus on his biases only. Maybe he will research the games he reviews, explaining context behind them, and maybe at least be civil in his responses. Well, none of that is the case, unfortunately, even for the games he reviews that have overwhelmingly positive reception. Like, look at Undertale. Even if you're someone who cringes at quirky dialogue, they still did an extremely good job at emulating what made old-school SNES RPGs work so flawlessly, while bringing an extremely unique take to the combat of these style of games. But there was not a mention of how well it replicates the feel of older games, with Obey preferring to compare it to games like BioShock and Borderlands. And while he does have a slightly valid complaint like unmappable controls and unchangeable resolution, it really gets drowned out by how he doesn't ever go into specifics about what he dislikes about the gameplay or what about the story is bad, pretty much relying on insults or those comparisons to other games' graphics and gameplay he prefers, rather than review what he doesn't like about the game he's, reviewing. This way of writing reviews where there's so much confidence that the reader will not want a proper analysis of the games and would rather know things like he thinks the game should be free and he thinks the game is shovelware is a constant in most of his reviews, with a lot of the time most reviews are an argument with a weird straw man of console gamers he has in his head. Like, majority of his Stardew Valley review here is him trying to justify why he considers Stardew Valley a console game even though it released on PC first. Like, bro is just fighting a battle against a non-existent thick glasses nerd with asthma here, and he doesn't even review the game. He just says he gets the appeal of the style of the game and carries on negatively reviewing the game. Though there's a bit of character development because Obey almost breaks through his pixel art bias for a moment here, but not quite. Though after reading so much pixel art hate from him, I'm a little proud of him for this paragraph. But his Terraria review instantly makes me disappointed again, with his only critiques he shares for this being it's made by talentless and lazy indie devs who couldn't afford an artist. It's not as good as Minecraft, Rust, or Ark, and it's 2D in a 3D era. I do also find the complaints about pixel art in this context especially funny, because some weapons in this game are 32 by 32 pixels, and one of his comparison games, Minecraft, only has low-res console peasant 16 by 16 textures, but it's 3D, so I guess it gets a pass. Oh, and if you think that's bad, wait till you see how he reviewed the internet's golden child, Hollow Knight. He said, oh, he actually liked it. But kind of like how he almost gave Stardew Valley a good review, he sounds super reluctant here the whole way through, stating this as a rare exception in the 2D genre. A good game. And while most of these reviews I've listed so far haven't had any research involved, even when he does do some, it ends up wrong. For his review on Sonic Adventure DX, he says he recommends it only to fans of the original who want a better version of it. But if you did one Google search, it's widely considered as the weakest compared to the others, unless of course it's heavily modded, which you would think he would love since modding is such a huge part of PC gaming, but I've not seen it mentioned once in his reviews, which somehow was even missed in his Skyrim review, which is very un-PC gamer-like of him. His lack of research is also relevant on any of his reviews on roguelike games, with his critique being they rely on procedural generation rather than gameplay and function, when, like usual with a little research, you could easily figure out most roguelikes have this randomness purely to allow the player to come up with unique and crazy build combinations, which is where the gameplay stems from. Like, yes, you can make these games have one linear path with one set of items and abilities to explore, but then you miss out on the majority of wacky and crazy builds the roguelike genre can create due to that randomness. It's a symbiotic gameplay relationship as opposed to him viewing it as if the gameplay is parasitic and leeching solely from the procedural generation. But thankfully, most of these reviews you have seen so far were sent to dev teams with a lot of backing and a large positive review backlog to block out these unhelpful reviews. Though, one thing about Obey is he loves an easy target, with a lot of games he reviews being put out for free or for extremely cheap by small indie dev teams without that backlog of positive reviews, leading to many indie devs' first review sometimes being from Obey, which definitely caused a lot of new indie devs' hearts to sink. And of course, with how many free games bro reviews, some are actually bad, but I wouldn't be able to tell which is which, because Obey's reviews on these small free indie games are pretty much the same as every other review we have covered before, despite them being way more fleshed out, but not in a good way. Because for these small games, Obey the Fist drops all pretense and just starts off these reviews with a jab towards the devs' preferred method of making a game, then goes into a massive tangent on everything these small devs have done wrong and how they are extremely unprofessional without even giving a drop of credit. The sheer amount of long-winded, repetitive ranting in these reviews is insane, and at this point, I really don't think Obey the Fist even considers the games as a whole when he's writing the reviews, because most of them honestly start blending together into basically him just explaining his manifesto the whole review, and at the end he just pulls out the all-time high concurrent player count on these games as if the whole Steam community came together and boycotted it. Like, bro really thinks that's a slam dunk proof these games are bad, when some probably simply just had no marketing and got buried in the catalog. This wasn't a "we did it Reddit" boycott, it was just a shadow drop. And not to mention, in his review of that Haunting Hijinks game I brought up earlier, he makes these wild assumptions about how this game failed to build an audience and was made in the hopes it goes viral, going so far as to call it a dead multiplayer game, when it's just a party game you were supposed to have friends to play. This is the equivalent of calling Jackbox or Mario Party dead games, when in reality you just have no friends. But that's the thing about these reviews. Instead of actually trying to review the game, Obey seems to be trying to send a message. He really wants to make the Steam publishing process harder to get through, so most games he would consider low quality aren't on his platform of choice, which he doesn't know the repercussions of fully, because one of his hobbies of writing reviews on free games would be over, and genius indie games like Balatro and a lot of the games I mentioned prior to this wouldn't have even had a chance, which is really why his reviews piss me off a lot, because I doubt he would see this in his writing, but it really seems like he's calling for censorship of the Steam store, which is just odd. And with all these critiques I'm giving to Obey, I'm thankful that I'm posting this critique of his reviews on YouTube, because let's just say if I was saying all this as a developer response to one of Obey the Fist reviews, he would rip me a new one with an edit to his review. Like again with Haunting Hijinks, the devs made an understandable response at first, thinking he was a troll and telling him straight up some of his assumptions were wrong and factually incorrect, which they were to be clear, and Obey the Fist edit here is where I think any Obey the Fist apologists will turn on him. He starts by trying to inform our devs here about the dev response guidelines and how they broke them, but he seemingly can't read them himself because everything he's citing is just a suggestion to the developers to avoid responding as a precaution. Nothing clearly states you can't respond in any manner you choose. Then Obey goes on a tangent about how hurt he was to be called a troll and how this is trying to turn his review back on him, making him look bad. Which, of course, he is not going to stand for, coming from this arrogant and insulting game dev, so he repeats his infallible SteamDB evidence and continues to insist the game was made to garner an audience, pretty much just repeating everything he said before, ending his reviews making sure every paragraph in his response ends with a sentence implying the game is a failure. And yeah, I'm almost 100% sure he would respond the same to any game dev who refutes any statement in his review, but the only other dev responses I've come across in my search of his reviews was for Streets of Rogue, where Obey calls out Tiny Build for their Epic Games exclusivity, and I'm assuming for this beta testing debacle, and no matter how scummy it is, the devs of Streets of Rogue specifically has nothing to do with this. Tiny Build was just his publisher. No clue why you were berating him like this, and if big boy Tim Sweeney came to you with $1 million for an exclusivity deal after you already held a beta test on Steam, you can't really blame them from taking it. I hate game exclusivity as much as the next guy, but I blame Epic for that, and I'm happy for indie devs to take their money for as long as Epic Games' failing business model takes to crash and burn. And that pretty much sums up Obey the Fist. Most of his reviews are just places he goes to rant about genres, art styles, issues, controversies, and his strawman vision of the devs, all while trying to act as though he is more knowledgeable about these games he's reviewing, even more so than the devs that created them. He goes about reviewing negatively in the complete wrong way, pretty much never attempting to give any credit to a game unless it was already an overwhelmingly positively reviewed game, and if it doesn't already have a backlog of praise, you know he's going to lay into the game and the dev extremely rudely, because that's just what he loves doing. He loves writing these reviews, creating infinite arguments against these games with duplicate points copy-pasted from one review to the next, with little care whether what he types is relevant or not, because these are all made purely for his enjoyment. No matter how much his manifesto hypes up his reviews and values, these are not helpful to majority of people, or should I say, gamers, and mostly cause stress for indie devs who don't deserve his harassment he parades as reviews. But honestly, while yeah, these harassment reviews do cause that initial heart drop for small devs, right after they look up his name on Google or YouTube, they instantly will feel better about it with how universally shrugged off he is. So I'm not really calling for his destruction or anything, because it's more just a delusional person that more indie devs should be aware of in case they get reviewed by him, with odds being your game at least isn't as bad as Obey the Fist says, especially so if it is retro-inspired in any capacity. And anyway, a lot of what he says starts to get really funny once you stop taking it seriously. Rereading his manifesto after making majority of this video kinda made him start giving off "I did it for the gaming family" energy. Furthermore, it's really interesting how his reviews get longer on games with little to no reviews, because it says only if he cares about the reviews he writes, if he knows they have a higher chance of affecting someone personally. Another quick nail in the coffin I forgot to mention earlier on his profile is Obey currently having War Thunder as his favorite game on Steam. And I have homies who play War Thunder on the regular, and the instant they saw that, they knew he couldn't be trusted, because anyone who actually likes War Thunder will tell you they hate it and would not have it anywhere on their profile. So even if Obey never changes his reviewing style, hopefully he will go through his character arc and eventually just accept his reviews are only done for his enjoyment, with him finally saying, "I did it for me." Oh, and before I end, I do need to come clean about my biases. I do have the complete opposite bias as Obey the Fist, where I actually love retro aesthetics in games. But I promise while that did compel me to make this video a bit, I don't think it clouded my judgment here, because unlike Obey, I still really enjoy high quality graphics and love that we live in a world where both are still being made, giving everyone the ability to choose their preference. But side tangent aside, the video is now actually over. I want to thank my members Luca and Stevie John for the 10 and 5 months of support. Y'all are the goats. And if you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Oh, and quick little fun fact, while looking through his reviews, I did find another reviewer with a comparable amount of reviews, but thankfully they had more games owned than reviews, and the reviews actually had a plausible positive to negative ratio. But they did do that weird thing Obey did, with most games they play having the same exact amount of hours on each. I don't know what that's about. Might just be uniformity between your games or something. It's just weird. Like, do y'all do this, bro? I don't know why y'all do this. Dude, tell me in the comments below, bro.